What's going on, everybody? It's your boy, Danny the Bull, and I'm back with another video for my OMI homies. So, of course, last week, Superman #1 dropped on Palm NFT. I wanted to talk about that today and its long-term potential. The competition in the digital collecting space is heating up, and I want to talk about how it's going to impact Veve. I think it's going to impact them in a positive way. In this video, I'm going to illustrate 4 ways that Veve will benefit from other companies moving into the space. So stick around. There is a lot to talk about. If you like this sort of content, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on Twitter. Twitter handle is linked down below. So I'm not going to lie, I was a little disappointed when I heard that DC Comics was landing over on Palm NFT and they wouldn't be dropping on Veve. I think a lot of us were anticipating some of these grails dropping in Veve. Action Comics #1, Batman #1, Superman #1. But I've come to terms with it. All right. And I think that overall it's a net positive for the industry and in turn a net positive for Veve. And I'm happy for the Bat Cowl community. But I do think that it raises some interesting discussions and questions, and now we can start to get some of those answers. And this is a very nascent speculative industry. It's a brand new industry, and up until now Veve has been the go-to place, really the dominant player in the game, and now we're starting to see real competition emerge. And so it's raising the question of how much does the platform matter? All right, how much does the IP matter? And we're going to start to get some answers. I think we're already starting to get some answers. So really interesting things going on. I'm going to explore some of that in this video. Let's start by taking a look at how the Superman comic has performed thus far in its first week. As you can see, it's done pretty well. At the time of this recording, the Uncommon, which a lot of people happen to like the most, it's got that vintage worn look. It's got a floor price of $525. The Common is sitting at $580. I picked up one of these last week in the $400 range. The Rare's got a floor price of $930. What Veve would call the Ultra Rare, I forget if they call it Legendary or Epic, I think it's Legendary, is sitting at almost $2,000. And then their version of the Secret Rare is sitting at $8,000 at the time of this recording. Meanwhile, by comparison, the 2 top grails over on Veve, AF-15 and Marvel Comics #1 are hovering around the $10,000 mark, all right? But we have to keep in mind edition sizes. There are 600 Secret Rares of Marvel Comic #1 compared to only 150 of Superman #1. And I think there are 250 of AF-15, all right, also has more. And total edition sizes of AF-15 is 10,000 compared to only 3,000 of Superman #1. So Superman #1 is by far much more scarce. It's also held in higher regard in terms of its value as a physical comic. Superman #1 set the record for most expensive comic in history. That was back in April when it sold for $5.3 million, and that's with a grade of 8.0. That far outpaces the previous most expensive comic book, which was a record $3.6 million, paid for a 9.6 Amazing Fantasy 15. That one sold in September 2021. So in the physical world, the Superman #1 is the most expensive comic. In the digital world, it is the most rare comic. That's to say the most rare of the grails that have dropped so far, not the rarest of all NFT comics that have dropped so far. Of course, there are some with more limited supply, but in terms of grails, all right, the Superman #1 has more scarcity built in than MC1 and AF-15. So, in the short amount of time that it's been out, which is approximately 1 week, we can start to draw some conclusions, all right? And that is that, 1, IP matters. Here we have a comic that dropped on a platform other than Veve, and it's performing well, right? It's highly sought after. people, couldn't get in. People getting kicked off the queue system. We saw a lot of problems that, Veve had early on when they had too much demand for their platform. Same thing happened to Palm NFT. So IP matters. But what we're also realizing is that the platform matters, because if this comic dropped on Veve, all right, I think that the rarest of it, Epic, whatever it's called, being more scarce than the other grails, and with Superman being a more sought after physical comic, I think it's safe to say that would be at least $10,000, all right, at this time or around that. It struggled to get to $8,000, so it's lagging behind a little bit, and I think that's because, it's not on Veve. It's on a platform that doesn't have that, that credibility or legitimacy just yet, but it's still performing really well. So what happens if and when Palm NFT does develop that credibility and, they do build a more sustained community? And so far, I think they've done well. From what I don't have a bat cowl. My man Cryptocurrency Scarface almost convinced me to pick one up last couple weeks ago, and I regret not doing it. But when I talk to bat cowl holders, they all seem happy, right? They seem happy with the utility that's been provided. They've worked together to create a community-driven comic book featuring Batman. They've, I think, gotten to meet, some of them have gotten to meet Jim Lee. They got tickets to the Black Adam movie premiere. So Bat Cowl holders have been very happy with the utility that's been provided. And I do think that as time goes on, Palm NFT has the ability to legitimize themselves as a mainstay and a major platform in this space. I think it'll take some time, and I think they need to work on their systems, but they have a lot more Grail comics coming down the way that are going to help to legitimize them as a platform. There's Batman #1, Action Comics #1, first appearance of Joker. All of these comics should be dropping at some point, and when they do, they're gonna help build out this brand, and in turn, Superman #1 will benefit from it. So if Palm NFT can develop that long-term, success and be a mainstay, I think that Superman #1 might just be able to eclipse MC1 and AF15 long term, based on its scarcity and based on the popularity of the comic in the physical world. Now, in January, MC1 hit $50,000. I think that it's possible that AF15 hit $50,000 and beyond. And so I do think that the rarest of those Superman comics could surpass those numbers. But of course, this is all very speculative, and we're going to find out over time how much the platform matters. If you collect cards, all right, baseball cards, basketball cards, that there are different card companies. You have Topps that does baseball cards now. You've got Panini that does basketball cards. When I was growing up, there were multiple card companies doing baseball cards. You had Topps, Donruss, Flair, Upper Deck, but the Topps cards were always regarded more. Upper Deck, went ahead for a little while, but overall, the same player, first appearance, rookie card, the Topps card would always perform better. All right, so it'll be interesting to see if that's the case in the digital world, and if that Veve brand holds more weight, and how that interacts with the power of the IP and license. But make no mistake, the competition is coming. You've got Mcfarlane Digital launching come December. They've got Trevor, who was a dev over at Veve, working for them. And the first glimpse of this Spawn statue looks really impressive. It looks really detailed. It's coming out December 1st. It's going to be interesting to see how this performs. Of course, Recur is still around, so this whole space is starting to grow. And we're seeing these companies do a number of things. First and foremost, they're leveraging the Veve community and trying to pull over people who are into Veve into their platforms. They're also learning from Veve's mistakes. They have the benefit of Veve's hindsight. All right, they can see where Veve had their missteps and they can avoid them on day one, or even target Veve's weaknesses, because this is what I would do if I were starting a company. You know, the Veve collectors have been dying for MCP and want more utility. I would start my company by giving more utility. All right, so I think we're seeing these companies do this. The Cowls, people have been happy with their utility. You're going to see Mcfarlane take advantage of some of Veve's weaknesses. And I think that this is a good thing because, again, while I'm disappointed that Veve didn't get DC, I think it's a net positive for the industry and ultimately for Veve to have these companies have success. Because competition is good and ultimately competition is necessary to produce the best product. And there are four main ways I think that Veve will benefit from Palm NFT and from these other companies being successful. And the first is that it legitimizes the space. This is a brand new industry. It's a growing industry now with multiple companies with big names behind them that are vying for market share. And there are, people who collect Mcfarlane toys in the physical world who are going to be onboarded to digital collecting when they drop their platform, and those same people will be led inevitably to Veve. And so as the pie gets bigger, Veve's piece of the pie will get bigger. All right, a second way that it benefits Veve is that it establishes them as the leader in this industry, because make no mistake about it, all of these companies are looking towards Veve. They identify Veve as the leader. All right, and so this really helps to ingrain Veve as, the number one company in this nascent space. Because as much as people talk about all the things that Veve has done wrong and their missteps along the way, their miscommunication, Veve has done a ton of things right that now these other companies are looking to replicate. All right, and Veve's main asset is their community. All right, and you're seeing all these other companies target the Veve community. So, Veve has done a ton right. And Dr. Profit tweeted out an article the other day that got a lot of attention. I want to take a look at that real quick and provide some analysis. Dr. Profit tweeted out that Veve took 3 to 4 years to reach $1 billion in revenue, and that Amazon was the fastest one of the big names to reach $1 billion, and it took them 5 years. Now, he's referring to this article that talks about Veve's online store, the marketplace, and how it's generated sales of $1.2 billion in its short time of existence. Now, a lot of people pushed back and said that's trading volume on the secondary market. That's not from primary sales. But no matter how you spin it, over $1 billion transacted on Veve's secondary market, which they get a cut of, is hugely successful in the short amount of time that they've been around, not to mention that this is a nascent, brand new industry. And when you take into account that they've actually generated in excess of $350 million in gem sales, in primary sales. All right, so by the end of next year, they'll be on their way to $1 billion in actual revenue, and then they'll have that, $1.5 billion or whatever they're at in secondary market transactions. Veve is tremendously successful. All right, there's no two ways about it. Now, the third way that competition will help Veve is that it will push them to get better, because, as I said, competition brings out the best in people. If you're running and someone starts running behind you, it is human nature that you are going to run faster. All right, so I think it's, the same way that these other companies are learning from Veve. They're going to do their own things that are innovative, and Veve can learn from them, and it's going to push Veve to be better, and they're going to feed off of each other. It's kind of like if you watch wrestling back in the 90s, it's like WWE versus WCW. WWE was at its best when they had that competition. And when that competition disappeared, the product diminished in its quality. All right, the fourth way that Veve will benefit is that it's going to shine a light on how good Veve is and the things that they've accomplished. All right, when we saw that Superman drop on Palm, people realized that they've kind of taken Veve for granted. All right, they remembered what it was like back in the early days when the app would crash, or there were people who actually were told that they landed the Superman drop and then they received an email hours later stating that they didn't. And so, all these companies that are new, they're going to have their own hiccups, which are as natural. Right? They're going to make mistakes, and what it's going to do is shine a light on how far ahead Veve actually is. So competition is good. I am looking forward to seeing how Palm NFT performs. I'm looking forward to Mcfarlane. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. As always, I hope you all enjoy the rest of your weekend. Stay happy, stay healthy, and stay safe. I will see you in the next video.